Hello, and welcome to another episode of Blindside Fresno. My name is Darcy Elliott, and I am going to be your host today. Our program is about the blind and people facing blindness and low vision issues. And we're excited today to have the president of our local chapter of the California Council of the Blind, Mr. Nathan Romo. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nathan, and we are very happy that you are here.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Yes, so thank you for coming. We're going to be talking today, of course, a little bit about blind issues and things that people who are in the blind and low vision community may or may not know about services that are available, and some of your personal experiences and things that you've experienced. So if you are willing, would you be willing to share with us a little bit about what caused your blindness, how long you've been blind?
I have been blind my whole life. I was born 3 months premature, and they put me in an incubator with too much oxygen. It kept me alive, but it had the side effect of damaging the retinas, which ultimately caused my blindness.
And that is something that is kind of not common, but a reasonable thing that happened to people of kind of your age bracket, and they've since changed their procedures with that, so that isn't as big of an issue today.
Yes, it's not such a common thing anymore. I'm sure it may happen, but it's very occasional if it does.
Okay, so do you have any vision at all?
I have pretty good light perception. I see bright light fairly well, sunlight fairly well. I have trouble like with room lights usually.
Okay.
I can tell where the walls are, and that's mostly about it.
Okay.
If something is moving close to my face, I can usually tell. It looks like a little moving point. Like I can play like air hockey because I can see the little point where the puck is, but that's about it.
Okay. So just thinking about your experiences growing up and as a child, can you remember a time when you realized that you were different maybe from other children and how you perceived the world around you? I
think I've always felt different, actually. I've always been very analytical and very logical and just been able to kind of think about things, and I've always known I was different, always. I can't tell you how exactly, I just have always known though.
Yeah, it's probably very difficult to explain an experience that's always been true for you.
Yes.
There's nothing to compare it to, I would imagine, unlike someone who lost their sight later in life.
Oh, I understand it's much harder for people that lose their sight later on in life.
And why do you think that is?
Because they've adjusted to having sight, and then if you lose it instantly, how do you handle everything? How do you pay your bills? How do you do your checkbook?
Okay.
How do you survive? I mean, if it's a gradual process, I think you have time to adjust, but if it's instantaneous where you get in some sort of accident or where there just is something that one day you're sighted and one day you're blind, and I can imagine that would be very difficult to adjust to. Now again, too, this also depends on the flexibility of the person, because everybody has varying degrees of flexibility.
Right.
Some handle change and embrace change and adjust to it, and other people don't like change. Even the smallest change kind of throws them off.
So that's an interesting point, that a lot of how you handle blindness is an attitude issue more than a sight issue.
Absolutely.
Would you say that that's true?
Even how you handle blindness, being blind is still it's an attitude perception thing as opposed to
right.
Because I mean the end result is sure you can take the bus, you can use Handy Ride, you can use other services to get yourself around. But there's a whole process before that. In other words, what do you do before that? I mean, how do you handle your house organization as to where things are? Do you memorize? Do you make notes? What do you do to be able to survive on a daily basis? Do you have somebody help you?
Right. So in my experience with people who've lost their sight, it's almost a special skill set that you have to learn. Just like if you're going to learn an instrument, there are things you have to know the basics, you have to practice in order to navigate the world without being able to see very well.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people who lose their sight might not be aware that they need to learn some new skills.
Oh, there's everything. Yeah. There's using a computer. There's how do you eat your food when you can't see it?
It makes it difficult.
It does make it difficult. And you've got to memorize just the smallest things. Like if you put your keys down on a table, it's like, okay, where did I put my keys at? Now for me, since I'm used to it, I can put something down to remember, but again, it's because I have to remember. But if I'm in a hurry, if I'm doing 4 things at once and just not paying attention, Oh, I can lose things with the best of them, and it's like I can spend half an hour looking for my phone.
Well, I do the same thing, and I can see very well. So
Right.
it's not really.
Whereas for me, you know, where I know things are, I sort of have a map in my head as to where I last put something.
Right.
I mean, I don't think about it, but I do remember it.
Because you've learned how to do that.
And you have to. There
Right.
really is no other choice.
Okay. So when you were growing up and learning these skills, how did your family handle your blindness or?
Not very well.
Not
But
very
again,
well.
this is not to give my family a hard time. A lot of families don't handle it very well.
Yeah.
My family was rather overprotective.
Okay.
And again, they meant well.
Yes,
But
of course.
but
They were worried about you getting hurt, I'm
right,
sure.
right. But I always had the attitude that look, I want to do things. I want to learn. I want to experience new things, and so I always pushed against that. I was never content just to say, okay, you know, isolate me and whatever. I'm not that kind of person. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to find a way to do it, or I'm going to just. I won't quietly accept that I can't. Now.
Well, that's probably a very good attitude to have.
Yes.
Now, did you go to traditional school or to school for the blind?
I went to two schools for the blind. One in Los Angeles, and then from when I was 9 to when I was 14, I went to California School for the Blind. It was at the time in Berkeley, California, and
Okay.
since moved to Fremont, I do believe.
Okay.
And then from 8th grade on, I went to school here in Fresno.
Okay. So you had both experiences. And do you think that going to school specifically for blind students, was that beneficial to you?
It was beneficial in that I got to be a lot more independent than I would have been had I not gone there. But
Okay.
overall, I have to say, I really, when I started going to public school, I embraced the public school experience, and I did very well.
Okay. Well, we're glad to hear that.
Thank you.
As you know. So what would you say then in your day-to-day life today, what are some things that are challenging to you as a blind person?
That's a very good question. I'd have to say little things like when you have to go someplace and it's only going to take you a minute, where you're not going to spend, say, an hour shopping.
Right.
Little things like that, where you've got to run small errands and you don't want to be out for 2 hours.
Right.
That's more annoying than challenging. It's there are workarounds, but it's just, you know, if I could drive, my life would be in certain ways a lot easier, and I'm
Right.
honest enough to know that. But again, I can't, so why be upset about what you physically cannot do?
Okay.
Now with the driving cars that are coming out, who knows?
Oh, Google cars. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be awesome,
everyone's
right?
working on them,
Yeah.
apparently.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, that's true. I've heard several people. Now, not to,
Oh, mail. Don't forget about mail. I hate mail.
oh, because you can't read.
And I've got to put everything on a scanner. I don't always have someone that can, you know, say, okay, this is the PG&E bill. This is.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I get so much
See,
junk
things
mail.
I wouldn't even, I
Oh,
don't even think about
I
because.
hate mail.
Okay, I'll not mail
Email?
you a letter.
Yeah, it's not,
I will not mail you a
email's
letter
easy.
then.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I will email you only or text you.
Okay, that's
As
perfectly
your phone
fine.
will read that to you, right?
Yes.
So let's focus on some good things, though. You were the only graduate who happened to be blind of the California or the Institute of Technology, the culinary school.
Yes.
And what made you decide to take on such a challenge, and how did that work out? And
A lot of this goes back to my own independence. When I moved out, I really didn't have anyone previously to
Okay.
show me how to cook, and so I taught myself literally from scratch
Hmm.
how to cook. You know, I burnt some pans. I set an oven on fire accidentally. one
I've done
time.
that, so this is
You know,
what.
but again, I did it. There was not a blind center to say, oh, go take a cooking class. It's so,
Right.
and I didn't really have anyone to help me, so I just said, fine, I'm going to teach myself this, and I taught myself over the years, and I actually got pretty good by myself. And
Okay.
then I enjoy cooking for friends and family, and I thought one day, you know what, this is something you can do. And I didn't know until after the fact that there were so few of us in the country that ever learned to do this professionally. It wasn't until I started researching it that I actually found out that there are well under 10 blind culinary
Wow.
students.
So congratulations
Thank
that
you,
you
I
did,
appreciate
and I
that.
believe, if I remember correctly, you telling me that you actually did very well and scored very high on most of your.
Yes,
Thanks.
I got a 90%. They give the
Very
grades,
good.
total grades are percentage. I got like a 90%.
So what's your best dish that you cook?
I cook everything. Although
Yeah.
honestly, okay, and this is not a criticism of my school. A lot of culinary programs are like this. So, chefs, if you're watching, I promise I'm not giving everybody a hard time. This is personal preference. I wish we had had more baking.
Okay.
Because until I got into culinary school, I didn't realize I actually really do enjoy baking. We only had, out of 11 classes, we only had 2 that really focused on baking.
Okay.
And the second one was a competition, so I don't think I'm going to really count that one.
Okay.
When you're competing with a group against another group, you're not really, I don't think you're learning, it's not the same sort of learning. I mean, you
Okay.
learn to be fast, you learn to get the job done, but you don't really focus on how to do it.
So my question, my big question for you now is, when are you going to be making me dinner? And
Making you dinner?
yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Oh, well.
I have to test your skills.
When would you like dinner?
We'll schedule a time.
Of course.
For that.
Just not the second Friday of each month, of course.
The second Friday, that's right. We have our meetings, and we'll be talking about that, more of the California Council of the Blind in just a few minutes.
Absolutely.
So would you say there are any advantages to being blind?
Well, like I was saying previously, you do memorize a lot of things around you. I don't know if that's I think it's an advantage in certain ways, because even when you don't have to memorize, you still memorize things.
Okay.
Although it can be very annoying to friends when I can say, yes, that day we talked about this, we talked about that, and it's like,
Oh,
no, we
yes.
didn't. I said, yes, I know for a fact we did.
Yes.
So don't get in an argument with a blind person if you can help it.
Yes, I have had that experience. I have to
Because
tell
they're
you.
going to say, this is exactly what happened.
I know exactly what you were talking about, but we're not going to go into that. It's a whole other episode.
I mean, I think my blindness actually, though, has made me, or helped me be a lot of who I am.
Okay.
Because I have had something to struggle with. When life comes too easily to you, and there are no true challenges, you have nothing to prove to yourself.
Well, that's a really good, that kind of goes back to the mental attitude really being important in how you go forward in your life, whether that's being blind or sighted. It's all about attitude really in the end.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to be going to a break here in a minute. So we're going to be talking when we come back a little bit about the services available here in Fresno. So be thinking about that, and some other issues with blindness and technology that we're seeing. We mentioned
course.
Google cars, but there's computer things that can help people. They're maybe not aware of screen reader things that they can use to help them. And so we'll be addressing some of those issues.
Of course.
And so we're going to take a few minutes of a break here, and we'll be back with Mr. Nathan Romo, California, the Council of the Blind Chapter President, and then we will be back in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you? Gary, financial aid forms.
Biology homework, G.
Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
And welcome back to the second half of Blindside Fresno, and we are still here with our California Council of the Blind Fresno Chapter President, Mr. Nathan Romo. So welcome back again for the second half of the show. So we had talked a little bit about California Council of the Blind. Can you share with us a little bit how you got involved with that and what your role as president is? And that kind of thing.
I got involved with the organization, I'd say 2006, 2007. I couldn't tell you exactly when I came into it.
Okay.
I came in as a member like everybody else does. I got voted in as a new member. You have to go to 2 meetings, and the second meeting you get voted in.
Okay.
I viewed it initially as more of a social group.
Okay.
You know, we talk about legislation, about how legislation affected the blind community and those sorts of things. But that was primarily a lot of what we did.
Okay.
Well, in 2011, or I'm sorry, 2010, I got voted in as treasurer at the time.
Okay.
And so I really started to get a little more involved. Somebody who will go completely unnamed, we both know, wanted me to be vice president back then. And I said, look, you're out of your mind. I don't want that kind of responsibility.
Too much responsibility.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
a lot. And I just didn't feel I was ready for it. I didn't want to do badly for the chapter. So after being president for 2 years, I felt that I could handle more responsibility. I felt that the chapter needed to go in a somewhat different direction, and so I was voted in as president at the end of 2013. And my goal since being president has been to raise community awareness of our organization, because it wasn't there. It wasn't there when I first came in. It's somewhat there now, but not to the degree that I feel it could be. I also felt that as an organization, we should be making money to give back to the community, to help with the community with things related to blindness, and even to help our statewide, because we are part of a statewide organization.
Okay.
California Council for the Blind, of the Blind, correction, sorry,
Yes.
has several chapters, quite a few chapters in California, but they are also part of the larger organization, the nationwide organization, which is called ACB.
Okay, the American
Council of the Blind.
Of the Blind.
Yes, and so California is one out of 50 states, obviously.
Okay.
And
So this is a good way to meet people that are facing some similar issues,
Yes, it
to
is.
network a little bit, perhaps.
yes, well, yes, it is. Well, I met you was it 2 years ago?
Yes, about that.
2 years ago, because you had been told about us, and I remember the phone call, and you called me and said, "Hey, look,
and we
you know."
we were very glad to find you, because it has certainly helped us a lot, because there's just a lot of things you don't know how to do or who to talk to or where to go. And so the California Council of the Blind,
It's a good place to start.
it is a
And,
great place to start.
You know, if you call the statewide organization not knowing about the Fresno chapter, they'll say, "Hey, look, there's a chapter in Fresno.
Right.
Here's our president's number. Call him and talk to him, and he'll be happy to help you out." And I've had people actually be referred to us.
Great. Yeah, we went.
It was you two, you and your husband, and then we
Yep.
had two brand new members that just got voted in last. Well,
Yeah.
it will be last month by the time you hear this, so it would have been earlier this month.
Yeah, so
And
it's growing, and there's
it is growing.
more people and things to do, and they're doing some social things, but also thinking about raising some money for things like giving back to the community and helping out other organizations.
Yes, that is correct.
To be
We
kind
do
of
the
complete the
we did
circle,
the
I
blind,
guess. It would-
the Easter egg.
Of the blind
thing for the blind
babies.
babies.
The Easter eggs beep so they can find
yes,
them. So
exactly.
it's really cool.
Exactly, and we help the Debbie's organization, which is the
Junior
Olympics. Is that
yes,
the one?
Junior Blind Olympics.
Thank you, Junior Blind Olympics.
Yes.
We donate to them regularly. We sponsored a student last year. We had a how do I put it? We had
It was an essay contest,
yeah, it was
right?
thank you. I was drawing a blank there. It was an essay contest,
And then
the students would basically write an essay as to why they needed an iPad to help them with their further education.
Okay.
And so we had some students apply, and the one that got it was I don't recall her name, but we did give her an iPad
Okay.
to help with her schooling, because
Awesome.
the sad thing is a lot of this technology, it's very helpful to us, but a lot of it's not. Even an iPad, which doesn't need any special software because
They have,
it's built in.
yeah,
Just
they
like
have a lot of accessibility
iOS
stuff in.
and Android devices do have built-in software to do speech output. You know,
Okay.
iOS has the voiceover, and the Androids have a program called TalkBack.
Okay.
You enable that. You know, it's part of the operating system of these devices, and so you can, you know, with no money down, get them to talk, and that's made life a lot easier for a lot of us.
So that brings me to kind of like the next question that I had thought about asking is, how has life changed for you as a blind person since you were born in terms of like the technology that's available, and has it made it easier, that kind of thing?
Yes, it's definitely made it easier. There are challenges with devices. Certain programs don't work, but since computers have been around, there's always been that problem in some way or other.
Okay.
My first computer was an old Apple IIe, and I took one of
Okay.
the first programming classes in high school, and just the software has changed so much. I mean, come on,
And all
nobody
you
uses
techie
floppy
people
drives.
out there are going to know what that means.
Yes, nobody. I mean,
yeah.
it's basically it's a box with a screen on top of it with a keyboard
Okay.
built into the front. Is what an Apple II more or less is like, and it has two
Right.
floppy drives.
Oh, floppy drives.
No hard drives.
Our younger
no
audience members will not
CD-ROMs.
even know what a floppy drive
Look
is.
it up. Just
You'll have to-
it's Google floppy disk
Yeah,
or,
they'll
or
have to
something.
learn,
And
so.
yeah, exactly. But that's what we started out with back in the
Okay.
80s, early 80s, and the hardware has gotten progressively faster and better and more usable. I mean, a computer isn't everything now.
Right.
Your players, you know, your phones, you know, the computing power now is thousands of times greater than what it was, you know, even 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I will say it's made reading a lot easier. When I was in college, I used to have to scan my books on a scanner.
Oh, wow.
And because none of it was available. If you were lucky, you could get what was they're called books on tape back, and they've had like
Right.
several names and stuff. But that's changed a lot. You don't see cassettes anymore, and everything currently you can get electronically in some form or other.
And I know I've seen some Braille books, and they are huge.
They are. Your average
Like, they
paperback
are-
novel is going to be volumes
yeah,
and volumes.
And that's like one volume of 7 or 8 that comes in one book.
Yes.
So
I used to read those back when, you know, growing up.
how do you carry that around on the bus to read while you're going somewhere?
Even one volume is huge.
Right.
You're talking about 8.5 by 11 volume with, you know, 100, 200 pages. Good luck.
Okay.
Like all of you, I take my phone. If I'm going to be gone, you know, from home on a trip, I'll take my phone, my tablets. I take what everyone else takes.
Yeah.
Now, the one difference for me is that I do take a keyboard. Like I actually do have physical keyboards for my devices.
Okay.
I can use the touchscreen, but I don't like to use it for typing.
So if people have questions about how to use technology, or if there's something that they can specifically use, can they call you or another member of the California
Of course.
Council of the Blind, and
Absolutely.
how would that work?
You call me and I'll just say, yes, I know the answer, no, I don't know the answer, and we'll go from there.
And if you don't know the answer,
I
we
don't
have
mind
several
saying
members.
I don't know, and I'll look it up, or I'll refer you to somebody who I know would possibly have the answer.
Because we do have members that use iOS as well as the Android.
I use iOS, I just don't like it very much. Well, correct, there are parts, but I don't like very much. But
Well,
then
we're not
again,
gonna get into that debate,
yes,
'cause-
but we have people the other way around that don't like Android because of the flexibility, because you can use what you want. You're not stuck, say, using iTunes. I mean, my thing with
Okay.
iOS is I just don't like iTunes.
Oh.
But that's just me.
Well, that's a minor thing.
But
So,
no, but I mean, I'm grateful that the platforms are out there.
Right.
I'm grateful that we have screen readers for computers. You know.
yeah.
I'm grateful that we have VoiceOver for the Mac, and there is a free screen reader for Windows. It's called NVDA. I don't have the website memorized, but just if you're interested, you can Google, or you can
Yeah.
go on to search it and look at an NVDA screen reader. That
Yeah,
is
and it's a
completely
free
Yes, it's open source.
download.
It's free. Actually, I don't think it's open source, but it is free.
Okay.
And they do ask for donations, and again, it's worth donating to.
Okay.
Even in the last 5 years, I've seen that screen reader grow into having a lot more features, because for us, using a computer, you need to be able to do things like read the previous line that you were on. You know, you have to be able to examine the screen. Like if it's reading to you and you miss something, you have to be able to go back and be able to review that screen and say, okay, this is what it read to me a minute ago, and I missed it because I wasn't paying attention, or I didn't understand it.
So again, this is another instance where this is another skill you have to learn how to do it. And there are people out there who can help you do that. So don't get frustrated, don't give up, because there are people who are willing and able to help you.
Definitely
right?
don't give up. Don't give up. It's
And,
worth
yeah.
pursuing.
Yeah, because it would just change your life. I know, just for reading a book.
Yes, I mean,
nothing else.
Well, again, too, it's like, you can get books off of, Amazon. You can get the Kindle books.
Right.
There are other sources that you can get books from, and there's always the Audible books or the Bard Library where you can download books that are narrated. It just depends on what you want and how you want to read it. When I was in culinary school, I remember my book was a 55 meg cookbook, and it had all kinds of pictures. I couldn't look at the pictures, of course,
right.
but it was a big, huge document because that was the only way I could read it. And so you work with what you have to work with. And the fact of it is that we don't have to scan books page by page anymore. And I'm grateful for that. So
yeah,
that's
I would think
changed
so.
a
That would
lot.
be a huge time saver. So as we think about ending today's episode, we're already out of time. We're getting close to the end of our show. What would you like to say to people who maybe are just now finding out that they might be losing their sight or will be losing their sight? What would you say to them as a person who can't see?
Well, if you're in the process of losing your sight, start looking at things now. Start looking at how your life is going to change and what you can start doing now before you lose your vision. Because it'll be a lot harder for you to handle it if you've already lost your vision. Now, if you've lost your vision already, then I would say there are people that are more than willing, there are organizations that are more than willing to help you.
Right.
This is not the end of the world. This is simply a new chapter in your life.
Yes, and a challenge, but you're not alone.
Absolutely not.
There are people who have experienced what you've experienced or are experiencing and can help you. So, get in touch with those people because it will make a huge difference, I promise.
Yes, absolutely.
So, so as we wrap up today's show, I would like to put that message out there again to people joining us. If you are a person facing blindness or the challenges of low vision and you have any questions or want to get in touch with our guest today, please email the producers here at Blindside Fresno, and it's simply blindsidefresno@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook at Blindside Fresno. So there's a theme there with Blindside Fresno. Hopefully that will be easy to remember. You can also contact Nathan Romo, and we'd be happy to pass on his information as well if you want to talk to him.
Absolutely.
But I really want to thank you once again for joining us, Nathan. You've been a lovely guest.
I was very glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for joining us on Blindside Fresno. And have a good day. And I think